Biogen is in the hot seat as lawmakers investigate concerns over drug safety and possible price gouging related to its Alzheimer's drug that have already killed users. Attorney Madeline Penley joins me to talk about it. Maddie, first of all, this is not the first time with Biogen. They've got a really checkered history, but this is just a new story, isn't it?
Right. Biogen has a history of developing what's called niche drugs, used to treat very specific things like Alzheimer's, like multiple sclerosis, putting it at an incredibly high price point, and then not being forthcoming about the adverse event data that's associated with the drug. They've done it with other drugs in the past, and they're doing it here. So Aduhelm is actually used to treat Alzheimer's, but what it does is it clears plaque buildup in the brain, which may or may not have anything to do with the cognitive decline of Alzheimer's. That's the first issue.
Okay, well, let me ask you that. So this got put on a fast track.
Right.
And with the fast track, you don't really have clinical data to prove that it works.
Right.
So the first time the FDA says, hell no, you can't sell this drug.
Right.
You may not sell the drug.
Right.
They come back again and they said, oh, well, how about if we fast track it? It sounds so crazy.
It's really frustrating because, like you mentioned, it was approved under the Accelerated Approval Program, which is supposed to be just as thorough as the traditional approval program. But here, it seems like it's just a plan B to get this otherwise failing drug pushed through. So a couple things to note. One, in 2019, these manufacturers, Biogen and Eisai, had to stop clinical tests because they could already see they would not be able to prove that this drug slowed cognitive decline of Alzheimer's.
There was no proof of efficacy at all.
Right. So they stopped it because they didn't want the actual result. They said, that we've seen enough. This drug doesn't work. FDA agreed. For some reason, in 2021, Aduhelm gets put back on the table in front of the FDA for review with basically the same information they've always had. And this time it gets approved.
Well, we know why. Because the same boneheads that have been appointed by this administration were the same boneheads in place from the last administration.
Right.
And they work mostly for the pharmaceutical industry. The FDA doesn't work. I don't know why people have this in their head that the FDA protects them. But here, okay, so what's really bothersome is they say, no, we don't have any clinical showing that this actually works. There's no clinical showing that it works. But we have a guess. And the guess is that if we remove the plaques from the brain, it's going to cure the problem. Isn't that what they're saying?
It is. And like you said, there's not enough data to show that that's the case. So what's happening is elderly people are being put on the medication in the hope that it will, one, clear plaques from the brain. We don't even know that it does that. And two, if it does, that their Alzheimer's symptoms will be reduced. So they're using these older people as guinea pigs. And what's happening is they're suffering from brain bleeding, brain swelling, and they're dying. So a couple of things that have been going on in getting this drug approved is the FDA actually made it easier to get the drug pushed through. The original question was, does this decrease cognitive decline? No. So they changed the question to just, does it reduce plaques? But I think the main question is, why did they do that? And they're actually being investigated by Congress right now, both Biogen and the FDA.
And again, this isn't their first time. This company's been caught up in fraud before.
Right.
And so the people who were, some of the folks that were doing the review, my memory is, they actually resigned from the committee because they said that this is such a bunch of BS.
Yes.
And people are going to die because of it.
They said this is the worst drug approval in U.S. history, Aduhelm. And so interestingly, because the drug was priced so high at $56,000 a year when it first came out, thankfully, not many people have taken it. But two things we'll be watching for is the drug to be covered by Medicare, so it opens it up to more patients. And also we'll be watching for a second attempt at Medicare fraud by Biogen, as they've done it in the past, very similar to that.
Okay, so $56,000 a year just for the drug.
Right.
You have to monitor with an MRI to say, yeah, I can see the bleeding coming out of your brain.
Right.
And then, so that's an added cost.
Right.
So now the company now wants to say, well, let's let Medicaid and Medicare pay for this.
Right.
And taxpayers have to pay for something that has been shown not to work. And oh, by the way, it'll kill the patient. Isn't that kind of where we are with this?
If covered by Medicare next year and the amount of people take it that we think are going to take it, it will cost Medicare between $29 and $37 billion next year alone just for Aduhelm. For
a drug that doesn't work.
Right.
Now, the idea of the plaque, the idea is if we remove the plaque, this is going to, and it's guess. I mean, at this point, it's purely a guesswork.
Right.
We're going to remove the plaque, and then that's going to cure the disease or slow it down. Most of the time, you have to say, we know this
Right.
because we tested it clinically in little clinical steps over a long period of time.
Exactly.
Not here though, right?
No, what they did is they did the accelerated approval, allow them to put the drug on the market, and now they're supposed to be conducting clinical tests in the hopes that it will support what the drug is already on the market for.
But the clinical tests are being done by elderly who are becoming guinea pigs. I mean,
Exactly.
rather than using the regular clinical process, we now have all these old folks who have Alzheimer's disease that we can experiment on.
Exactly.
And that's what Biogen is doing here.
And that's the problem.
Maddie, I hope you'll go after them and have some impact on stopping some of this. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.